I want to share this here. So anybody who comes up with a vision and says that I have a God-given vision, and everybody now is being disturbed by their supposed vision. All right, they're putting people around them under pressure that, you are not helping me and all of this, and they want to transfer the responsibility of that vision to other people on the outside. Then it's either they don't have a vision from God, or they have, no idea as to how God fulfills, his vision. He always uses what you already have access to, what is in your hands today. Now, if you hold that particular thing and say, but what I have is nothing, then that's where the problem is. If you say, I do not have anything in my possession that is capable of fulfilling or being used to fulfill the vision, then you are making a cardinal mistake, and it is an error. So there is something that you have that God wants to use to fulfill that particular thing. And when God was creating, he used what he had. He used the waters that he had to bring out fish, to bring out birds. He used the soil that he had. He didn't use anything massive. He didn't bring into this earth anything from heaven and introduce it. Do you get what we're saying here? What he used was the waters that is on the earth that you also have access to. He used the ground that is on the earth that you have access to. The only thing that he introduced was his word. And you have access to his word too today. Are you following what I'm saying here? He didn't bring, creatures and bring things to show us that this is how this thing works. So we see in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 20. And you have to understand this, that you are not a disadvantaged person. You have to understand that, listen, you look down on yourself and there's no self-esteem. You feel like, I don't have what it takes. Then people have got to be taught the wisdom of God. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 20 here says this. God said, let the waters bring forth. What's the waters? At the beginning in Genesis 1:1, it says that God created the heavens and the earth. Verse 2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved over the waters. So what he had was just waters, and then he separated the water from the land, and then there was land and the water, that's all. What is available today. And then he says in verse 20 there, he called forth every moving creature that had life, and the fowl that it may fly above the earth. Birds and fish, he called it out. Verse 21, he now created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly. Now, if we read on because of time from 23, he now went to the earth, that's dry ground here, brought out cattle, brought out every creeping thing there from that particular dry ground. And like we said last week, he didn't bring everything out. There was gold we found out, there was silver, there are precious stones, things that are still yet undiscovered, that are embedded inside the earth. He didn't even bring all that out. And said, now, I leave you, man, have dominion. You see what I've done in this garden? Replenish the earth. In other words, it was the garden alone that he dealt with. He said, extend this thing throughout the entire earth. Which means it's the same thing he said about the gospel here. Take the gospel to the ends of the earth. Transform lives. Let lives be transformed. Let the beauty of God radiate through lives. Same thing he said to Adam, go out now here. I've only done this in this garden. That's why he moved him out of the garden. In this garden now what you have to do is to take this thing and reproduce it, everywhere else. So out of the things that he had in his hand, he brought forth his heart's desire. And there is so much therefore contained in what we have in our hands today. And he wants us to do the same. Genesis 1:28 says, replenish, the entire earth. He wants us to do the same. Now, so, number one, God gives a vision. I want to show this, a promise. It's a very short message. He uses what you have in your hands now to fulfill, that particular promise. Now, here is his purpose. I bring out rivers there from the desert places. And the reason is to give drink to my people, my chosen. So, the third principle we'll see here is clear. God gives a vision and a promise. Then he makes use of what you have in your hands to fulfill the vision. But that vision, and anytime God moves like this, it is not because he wants to satisfy our own self-centered desires. He wants to use you as his channel to minister blessings unto others. Now, once you reorientate your vision, that my vision on this earth is not for just my own well-being, but my vision, and this is the only type of visions that God gives, the vision is for others. In other words, I am going to be a channel through which other people are going to have certain things done in their lives, certain needs met in their lives, certain specific things done. Once that is the issue, my friend, power of God starts flowing through you. Say there, multiplication begins. Once it is self-centered, which means it's about me. All right, God, I want to get this. God, now, if you make yourself a channel, then everything, you see, this is how God does everything. This is God's pattern. He gives to a person a vision about their future. That vision is tied up, all right, to using you as a channel through which he will bring about massive blessings into the lives of others. And then he uses what you have in your own hands now to be able to get it done. So here is God's pattern. He meets with a person. He enters into a covenant with that person. And most of the time this happens, that person has a personal need in their own lives. He says, this is going to be my own channel through which we are going to bless multitudes. And it's the same thing. Spiritual world of commerce. All right? This is why if you are just thinking, if this is just your thought, I want a job. Why? Because I have to earn a salary so I can buy things from yourself. You're stuck. That's why you get into a system, and what you are saying is, they have not given me anything. And they ask you, what are you contributing to this system that you are making this demand? You say, well, they should give me. All right. If they remove you from this system, will they continue without you? Yes. So why do they need you? Ask yourself. If you are a business owner, listen to what I'm saying. And in your business, you are getting 50 million in every single year. And there you employ 12 people. 2 people are responsible, all right, for 80% of that income coming. And 5 of those people that don't bring anything in are threatening you. What will you do? You won't show them the door? I'm asking you, answer with that. All right? Now, if you're not bringing anything to it, you just think in your mind, all right, that because I am physically present, you owe me something. Or that because you are my blood brother, you owe me something. They don't owe you. They don't. You say, oh, brother, okay, what if they failed in class? What if they didn't pass? Did you do the exam for them? They read by themselves. They use courage to get where they're getting to. You don't have relatives that didn't do well. Why don't you go and meet those ones now? Do you get what I'm saying here? It's an entitlement, and people really are just self-centered, even in their relating with God. So the concept of God's wisdom, all right, is just not there. So that's why they're looking at it and saying, I know this. It's what God wants to, and it's this pattern. Let's look at it in this pattern here. And that's why he says, you ask, he says, you have not because you ask not. And then you start attacking people, all right, because you think that it's those people that have taken from you, which is not. He said, you have not because you ask not. He said, and when you ask, you receive not. He said, because you ask amiss, which means you're missing the point, and which is to consume it on your lust. He said, you would have gotten that thing if you understood that, listen, the purpose of this thing here is that I am going to be a blessing here to people. This is going to be a point of contact. Then the supply and the flow starts in your life. So, Exodus chapter 4 and verse 2, God met with Moses. The point here is, it's not for your own personal deliverance. You are to get a nation out of this. The Lord said to him, what is in your hand? He didn't go and say, let's gather. No. What do you have in your hand? All right? In fact, Aaron and the rest of them that came was because Moses was insisting on his inadequacy. He said, what do you have in your hand? And he said, a rod. And so, God wants to show that what you have, the way you are defining what you have, is not the way that thing really is. Do you get what I'm saying? So God comes to you. What do you have in your hands? A poorly paying job. Now, that definition that you have given is what has set the limitation. Because God is not going to go from outside. He's going to use what is in your hand. He asked him. But the signs and the wonders wasn't for the emancipation of Moses, but it was going to be used for the deliverance there, all right, of Israel. So when you are in a time of need, God is trying to call your attention to your life purpose. He's trying to draw your attention to your purpose. He's trying to say, listen, I've got your attention now. They toiled all night and caught nothing. He said, I want your attention to your life purpose. If you can spend time praying and seek my face, then I will show you, right, what I want to do through you. And then I will show you what you have in your hands that I am going to use, right, to get that particular thing done. So let's look at this again. The promise, the instrument, the purpose. God makes a promise. He gives a vision. The instrument is always in your hands. Genesis 14 and verse 14. Genesis 14 and verse 14. And when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house. You didn't want to look for allies first. 318 of them, and pursued. He looked on the inside. I remember it was in the early 90s, and there was a station that came on in Nigeria, a news station, first independent radio station, that mentioned his name. And some people that were in management then insisted, and I used to hear them on radio, because at that time, if you went out, it was only foreign music that was being played. All right? You had just a few people, maybe someone like Chris Okotie and all, that had some record that people would dance, or Dizzy K back there. You know Dizzy K song? You are too young to know Dizzy K song. All right. So there are some people that would sing back then. But I used to hear this radio people keep insisting, we're going to play Nigerian music on this station. We're going to force Nigerians to listen to their music. I mean, it was like, I was looking, what are these people doing? Now we're going to play Nigerian music. Nigerian music will be playing. It's Nigerian music will be playing. Local content. That the percentage on this station is local content. The Nigerians did not appreciate what they had. Today, the music is what they are playing in stadiums, is what they are playing everywhere. But if you don't believe in what you have in your hands, it's not going to multiply anywhere. Are you following what I'm saying here? If you prefer to stand with somebody else and take a photograph rather than standing by yourself, you would not be. Do you get what I'm saying here? Which means evaluate me by this association, not by what I'm bringing out of my belly. You think the people you are standing beside doesn't know? Are you following what I'm saying? You think he doesn't know? John chapter 2 verse 3 to verse 8 here. All right, let's look at it again. Now, here's the pattern. You see where the multiplication, the calling forth comes out of. John 2 verse 3. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, they have no wine. And Jesus said unto her, so a need, all right, was established on the outside. I want you to see the pattern here. Though Jesus said to her, woman, what have I to do with thee? My hour is not yet come. Verse 5, how do you do it? The mother said, whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. They were there, and there were set. Not any, Jesus didn't go far. What he used were what? There. He didn't say that, wine, I'm coming. He said, no. He just looked around. In other words, when you want to achieve that goal, and that goal is always about meeting needs, all right, in the collective, in the lives of people there, then what you look where you are. Look at what you have in your hands. And what did Jesus do there? He said he found the pots there, all right, containing 2 or 3 feckens apiece. And then the next thing he did, verse 7, was that he said, fill the water pots with water, and they filled them to the brim. And then he did what the Father did in the beginning. All right, he called forth. Next verse. He called forth, draw out, and they brought out wine from the water. So it didn't come from it. Jesus didn't, and this is not how it's going to happen. It's not going to happen by Jesus standing and say, wine come forth. Do you get what I'm saying? And then the wine just appeared. It has to come out of something. In other words, whatever you are doing now in your career, that's where everything you are going to be in terms of that world, God is going to bring it out of that particular place. That's why you've got to understand and treat those things properly. Do you get what I'm saying? Because if you are coming late, if you're not showing up, if you're not doing enough, that's what he's going to use. This is exactly what's going to use. Now, there are some people that just do it out of a moral standpoint, but if you don't do things morally, you do those things in faith. You do them because you know something is going to come out of this, and you are calling out of it every day. Or you are calling out of it. That right here, I call out the relationships. I call out the relationships. So somebody can be an air hostess and does it very well. And there says, one day I'm going to own a business. And says, I look at this, I call out from this job the people that I will need to meet strategically. Calling out stuff as more as he or she sees, they are calling those things out. They see things, they call out of it. All right, the investors for this business, I call you out of this job. You have to call it out of somewhere. So Jesus filled and brought the water out. And that's the prophetic word. You speak to things and bring it out. 2 Kings again, chapter 4, verse 1 and 6. We'll see this pattern again. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophet unto Elisha. And thy servant, thy husband is dead, or my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and the creditors have come. All right, it was an anointed man, but it was in serious debt. So anointing and financial issues are two separate things. He prophesied accurately, but his family was in trouble. His children would have gone into slavery. But he was a son of a prophet. Look at what he's saying. Look at what he says. He served it. No, so thy servant, my husband, is what? Dead. So but that is not today. That's not what we're teaching. So don't just say that automatically because I say I'm serving. You have to. That's why things have to be done in faith. All right. You can't just do things morally. You have to do it in faith. So he was in debt. Now, when the prophet came, after she reported, what did the prophet say? And he said to her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me. The first thing the prophet said is, what do you have in your house? They're not going to come and meet you and come and tell you. Jesus, when they were going to feed the multitude, he said, what do you, go and find out what you do, what have. To him that has not, even that which he has shall be taken away. It says, what do you do, what have. And then hear what the woman answered. This is where people are answering things. Thine handmaid hath not anything in the house. Which means, what she said was that, what she did say, I have nothing except this pot of oil. And immediately the prophet's eyes said, that's fine. Can you go and get it? Now, the next thing is, we have to identify needs around. If this thing is going to be multiplied, it has to be poured into some emptiness somewhere. Are you following what I'm saying here? If it's going to be multiplied, it has to be poured into some emptiness somewhere. Which is what they understood in 2 Corinthians chapter 8. They were in affliction, verse 1. These people were in affliction there in Macedonia. They were 2 Corinthians 8:1. All right, moreover, I want you to know the grace of God bestowed on the churches of Macedonia. All right, how that, verse 2, in great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded unto the riches of their generosity, which means they were in affliction. He said, but they had joy and they also had generosity, which means in that state where they were, what they were doing was they looked on the outside. Look at the next verse, verse 3. They looked on the outside and said to themselves, for to their power I bear record, beyond their power, they were willing of themselves. In verse 4 there, it says, praying us with much entreaty. Now, it wasn't Paul that came to meet them to be telling them to give. They were the ones that saw it. So this was a faith act. It wasn't anybody, they were the ones. He says, praying us with much entreaty, look at it here, which means that we should receive the gift and take upon us. That is, they told Paul, please take this other responsibility, the fellowship, which means of us going into partnership of ministering to the saints. All right, which were the saints in Judah. They said, those guys, we heard of what they are going through, the level of persecution that they are going through. And even though we are in need here, they said, we will, all right, connect what we have to some need, greater need on the outside. And Paul said, when he got second, he said, God will cause all grace to abound towards you. All right, which means you will have all earthly favor. You have favor on every earthly blessing. All right, he said that you will always have sufficiency. Put up the Amplified. He says this grace is going to come into your life. And this grace here will give you favor and earthly blessing, come to you in abundance, so that you may always and under all circumstances and whatsoever the need be. Even if they change the naira, do you get what I'm saying? All circumstances be what? Self-sufficient, possessing enough to require no aid or support, furnished in abundance to do every good work and charitable donation. Can you imagine that? Where did it come from? It came from them operating this principle. So when a person is saying, you don't know what I'm going through, can you see? You don't. Myself. I don't have anything. It's something that you have. So if a person has a gift or locked on the inside and that they want to be able, they say they can sing. Let me tell you, someone starts singing. The first thing you have to establish that I have a gift, and this gift as a child of God must be a seed in which all the nations of the earth be blessed. So I begin to pray, God, show me people where there are needs inside the earth that my singing can minister to. Because I have seen people, or even playing an instrument, I have seen people call for people to play an instrument and demonic spirits were lifted off them. In other words, I can play music and people had depression, was lifted up. And you start praying, God, that's the first thing. Show me, show me, show me. I don't want guesswork. Show me, it is going to come out of me. Show me, and God shows you and says, fine. Now I will use this thing that I have to minister to these needs here. And then you write a song for that. And as you put the song out, it just resonates with those people. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, a person says, well, I have the gift, I can speak, all right? I know that. But first of all, you've got to establish what are the needs there. And then you discover needs that organizations and companies may have. God shows you. And they need somebody to speak, all right, to these things. And then you say, God, right, I have this gift here to be able to talk. And then God says, all right, we'll just fill your mouth with the substance. And then, well, first of all, you've got to understand that once you connect to that, automatically, finances are going to come to you. Automatic. In other words, you are working in a place. What you should do as a Christian, you want to start rising. And even just for your own self. God, I'm praying here. That's why he says, my people have not gone into the gaps. There are gaps everywhere. People are just thinking about, people even go to the point where they start cheating and all that to make money. And I miss the whole prayer. All right, I have this gift here. What can I use this gift here to do in this particular place and can change and transform? Now, you know what this is going to take from you? It's going to take strategic praying and thinking. And when you start praying, I'm telling you, it's not going to come to you. The needs, and it's all over because the earth is filled with it. It's not going to come to you by hearing a voice. My son, my daughter. There's a need in this place. Do you understand what I'm saying here? That's one of the problems why people say, my vision, my vision. All right? Vision is something you saw. Do you get what I'm saying? All right? You saw something. So just start praying to God. And you'll just find out in the course of things, once you're praying about it, a conversation can start somewhere. When you are not even thinking about that thing. When God will show you, you are not conscious of it. It's not that you're waiting, God, it's your mind you hear. But you are just doing stuff and you just suddenly saw that this. Or you can write. All right? And in the fact that you can write here, you know that God, it says, well, but I wrote, nobody read what I wrote. It's because it hasn't resonated with a need.